Evolution.org Hardcore, episode 215 is coming your way. Today we're talking about the best way to use Winstrol by Euro-Pharma. And this is going to be a really cool episode. Winstrol's been coming on really strong the past few months, the past year, because Masteron has been so difficult to get a hold of. So a lot of guys are transitioning to Winstrol and they're noticing, wow, this stuff is amazing. And we have a special guest on as well, Big D from the forum, Big D 9795. So you can come on the forum at evolution.org. Top right, you can do a search and put in Big D, the letter D, nine, and then the number is 9795. And you can see his log, you can see his post, and he's talked about using Euro-Pharma Winstrol. So this is why we wanted to get him on to really talk about his experiences. We're also going to get into his history and how he's made some amazing transformations and changes in his life that have benefited him and that can benefit many of you listening out there. We're going to talk about how to use Winstrol specifically and what Winstrol does in the body and some of the pros and some of the side effects that people have had and what Big D has experienced on it. And then we're going to talk about stacking it, what's good to stack it with. And we're going to talk about Euro-Pharma options that they have when it comes to Winstrol. So it's going to be a really, really good show on Winstrol. This is going to be a good one to have as a reference point. First, let me remind everyone, we are on Apple, we are on Spotify. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you leave comments, subscribe, and all that good stuff on all the platforms we're on. It helps get the algorithms to pick up our podcast and help us spread the word. So with that said, thank you, Big D9795, for coming on. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Just got back from the gym, had a good workout. I'm basically on a 4 day, or actually a four series. Let me rephrase that. I work out 5 days a week, but I'm doing an upper lower split. So I have upper A, lower A, and then I rotate into upper B and then lower B, and then that just kind of rotates through the cycle repetitively. So basically, I hit upper 3 days 1 week, lower 3 days the next week, and it reverses out. It's a good split for me because it with my rest days in there, it gives me plenty of time for recovery, but yet allows me to emphasize alternating weeks, upper versus lower. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I just finished up my bulking cycle about a week ago, and I'm transitioning to TRT phase right now, getting ready for some hernia surgery in December. And then I'll have a recovery there that's going to be mentally, it's just going to be crazy because I hate inactivity. But yeah, it's gym session was great. Got a good pump, so I'm feeling good this morning and ready to have some lively discussion.
Ha.
Yeah, and let me before you say anything, Mobster, let me just let everyone know you can go on the forum again and search for him. But in his post, you can see his log. You can see something called Follow My Log, and you can click on his log and follow it. And his current log is 44 pages. He started it in July, and it's been really going well. And by the time you guys listen to this podcast, some of you out there, he'll probably be on his next log. So, but this log will always be in his signature. So if you can just find one of his posts, check his signature, and you'll see it on there. So Mobster, take it away.
I'm going to ask you a question in a minute, but we're going to start these shows as we have done recently, Big D, when we've had guests on like yourself, when we've been talking about the evolutionary community in specific interviews, by making sure that I thank you for coming on today's show and helping us do this show, simply by virtue of and we're going to get into this big time, listeners, the inspiration that BD will have. I mentioned this to him in the pre-show. When you hear his journey, when we talk about fat loss, this guy is fucking outstanding in and of himself. So that's part of that. The simple fact of him coming on to help us with today's show and for being part of the Evo community, and like the other guests that we've had on, we make sure that we need you to help us. And by coming on the show, you're helping us. So on behalf of the forum, the moderators, myself and Steve, and the admin and bosses at Evolutionary. Thank you very much for coming on today. I'm going to ask you very quickly, Steve, because I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to talk about, something specific, of course. And again, I've already talked about it in the pre-show. Tell us your age, and I won't ask you how heavy you are because that's going to be a big part of the initial part of this show. So remind your listeners just how tall you are and how old you are,
Yeah,
and then
Big
we're going to get
D,
into the
not
meat.
me. You said Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Big
yeah.
D.
So Big D. Yeah. I want to know how big and tall you are. Yeah. I wanna start that because when I talk about this transformation, I want people to get a hang on the rest of the statistics. So Big D, how tall are you? How old are you right now?
I'm 6'3", long ass arms, and of course that presents its own challenges in the gym, as most of you know. But and I just turned 56, so I started this journey of mine
Yeah.
into fitness, and it evolved into just this passion for training. About 53, I think I was 53 when I started. So yeah, I'm 56
I
now.
mean, Steve would normally ask, I mean, because that's kind of late coming to it. Did you play any other sports, whatever, before? Or, as I will segue in a moment, in terms of your body weight, was that an issue in terms of your health? So talk about perhaps where, have you done any sports at school? Was you sporty then and you got out of condition and become overweight? And again, for the benefit of the listeners, the transformation here is going to be fucking monstrous. It's going to blow your minds. So, talk about a little bit about your early sporting activity, if you had any, or was you overweight then and stayed overweight? Because we're going to get into that in a moment.
I had problems with my weight my entire life.
Okay.
I was a chubby fat kid.
Yeah.
I had a mama that could cook like no other, and she made great stuff, and I always partook of it. But I struggled with weight my whole life.
Right.
I did, I played football in high school, middle school, and high school. I was always one of the bigger kids, but so I got playing time, but I developed a passion for football, and I knew that's what I wanted to do in college. So I worked real hard to get into some better kind of shape for college ball, and I was able to get a full ride scholarship to a college, and started out playing that, and then that came to an end after I blew my right knee out, and all these years later, I ended up having to have total knee replacement in 2016.
Wow.
But
So what happened with the knee? Did someone roll into you? Was it something like a non-contact injury? We see a lot of that in the NFL. Like
Yeah.
what exactly
Yeah.
happened?
And on the
um,
forum. Yeah.
I played offense and defense, but this happened while I was playing defense, and um, I was able to get past the lineman that was in. I was a lineman, a big guy lineman. Played nose guard, and when you're playing a down lineman position like that, especially in the interior line, um, there's always people coming, pulling guards and tackles, different kinds of things. I was able to get past the guy that was in front of me, and I was all eyes on the quarterback, and didn't see the guy coming that was pulling down the line, and he came right and caught me from the side of my knee, and it collapsed. That was it. And so that's kind of what happened, and that moment when it did happen. But
Did they take your scholarship away after you got injured, or did you get to keep your scholarship? How does that work?
well, in this particular situation, they're basically paying you to perform.
Mm.
Um, they talked to me and said, now it's time to decide what you really want to do and focus on your education, and that's pretty much what I did. So uh, they didn't take it away immediately, but I lost it after the next semester.
Wow, that's so
Well,
nice, these
yeah.
colleges, huh?
Yeah.
The way they treat their
So, yeah.
athletes.
Yeah. Fuck you, you're
Unbelievable.
injured. Go away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
There,
horrible.
there's an element for me, talk slightly going away from that for a second. And again, I'll get into the actual body weight situation in a moment, but there's an element for me here thinking if you'd have continued to be athletic, even as a bigger guy, you'd have somehow managed to be fitter, healthier, regardless of the fact that you'd have been still big compared to most people. And to be frank, a little bit heavy compared to most people, versus getting that knee injury, focusing on the schooling, which you needed to do, was obviously a good way to go at the time, because it can't all be fucking like weightlifting and stuff. We've got careers and shit that we need to do. And again, that's for the benefit of listeners. It's not all, these shows aren't always about training and taking PEDs. We have to think about other stuff, especially when it comes to education.
Well, if I'm being
Now,
honest, and I'll just real quickly, even then, this is over 35 years ago.
yeah.
Even then, the trainers didn't really train. They didn't teach you how to lift. They just wanted their interior linemen to be strong.
Yes.
And, they told you go lift. And there was not proper form or technique taught, but probably a lot of injuries that happened because
Or
of that.
nutrition. I mean, I'm thinking perhaps my limited knowledge of American football back in the day and around the kind of time you talked about was it William Perry, aka the Fridge, who was famous for just being a great big fucking motherfucker who could move people around on the
That was
field.
that was what Big D was playing basically in those.
Yeah, but you look at the athletes then, and especially the bigger athletes then, Steve. No one was conditioned. Look at the strongmen of the time.
Yeah,
they were big fat fuckers who were strong. It's only in the recent years
now these guys are big.
Realize,
they're over 300 pounds and they can run like a 4.7 40. It's insane the way they are today. Yeah.
Let me jump right on in there, because I think again, I think this is a big part of the show. We're obviously going to talk about Winstrol and the effects it's had on Big D in enabling him to get into shape. But to be let's put it in very straightforward terms. And again, it's for the listener. Big D already knows this. He's living this fucking stuff. He was at one point 416 pounds. That is the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. That's an outlier in terms of population. That's right at the top of the curve or right at the bottom of the curve. It's nowhere near the fucking bell curve. It's nowhere near the middle. It's like being under 100 pounds at 6'3". It's right at any end of the spectrum. And 416 pounds, regardless of what we talk about on your shows when it comes to obesity, is right fucking up there. Now, as of July 2nd, and Big D can update us on this, I'm just looking at the beginning of your log, Big D. You weighed, when you put the pictures up and introduce yourself in the log, 198 pounds. So he lost, and again, I'm just going to emphasize this point, guys, over 218 pounds, and is less than half what he fucking weighed to begin with. There's a whole stuff, and I'll ask you about this in a moment, Big D, with regards to your decision making and so on and so forth. What got you to make this transformation? I'm reminded of a couple of examples I know locally. But again, just to bang this fucking drum really, really loud, he weighs less than half what he started with, and was, to be quite frank, massively obese, morbidly obese. And his transformation, I'm just looking at your profile picture in Big D, is of a muscular, middle-aged fella with biceps, with lines in his delts, with lines in separation. And it's hard for people to get their heads around that kind of transformation. Now, we've touched a little bit on your background, your sporting endeavors. I wanted to make sure, if you did some sport at school, although you was obviously a bigger guy, as you say. So let's fast forward now, and I'll let you bring this stuff in. I can see it here in your log, but I'll let you mention it. Talk about the two reasons. I'm thinking specifically of your wife and her decision to support you and be on the journey, but also your grandson. So talk about the reasons why you grabbed this bull by the horns and said, enough of this fat shit. I'm going to make a transformation, and let the listeners know.
And tell us where you were at your worst. How old were you? How much did you weigh? What was your body fat and all that stuff?
Okay, so I'll give you the intro part as to why I made the decision. In January of 2023, when I was at my heaviest, I went to a doctor's appointment for an annual physical. And keep in mind, I'd had doctors telling me for years, you need to make a change. You can't keep this up forever. And but they had done blood work, and I went into the doc, and he came in. And he says, "Well, we need to have a blunt discussion." He said, 416 pounds. Your lab work is a wreck. Your organ function is down by like 30%. Um, I, you're a raging diabetic. My A1C was like 11.9. They want it under 6. So almost double what they want. And that's significant. That meant my blood sugars were running up into the 5 to 600s easily on a daily basis. He said, I'm giving you 5 different medicines for diabetes alone, including injectable insulin. I don't have anything left in my tool bag to give you um, to counteract this. He said, you're basically at the end of the road when it comes to medication that can help control this. And he said, I don't think you've got 10 years left of life. And he said, I'd be surprised if you made it 5 years without loss of limbs, um, permanent damage to your eyes and your organs, and your quality of life is going to diminish drastically.
Yeah.
Well, I had about a 6-month-old grandson at the time,
Mhm.
and I knew that that couldn't be my future because I wanted to see him grow up and have his own children.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
so it was a wake up call for sure. And I went home, and my wife and I were both obese. We
Yep.
had yo-yo dieted for years, tried back and forth, and each time we would convince ourselves, hey, I'm happy. I'm happy with where I'm at. And then we would get off the diet and binge, even worse. It was crazy. I mean,
Mm.
I would call myself a recovering food addict.
Let me
And
ask you. Let me just jump in for a second here. And again, this is an important. I hope it's an important question. We've talked about on these GLP shows this idea of one of the things that they studied was our reward thing, where we would reward ourselves with things, whether it's food or drugs or sex or whatever else. And that with the GLPs, like semaglutide, etc., they actually looked at whether or not people were doing that, and actually they'd reduced it. So you mentioned that your mum was, for want of a better phrase, and I'll use this phrase, a feeder. She fed you and you ate it and you enjoyed it. What do you think your relationship food was? Why was it like the way that it was? Upbringing, diet from when you're a kid, background, genetics, or as you said here, binging after you've had a diet. What was the relationship with it, and how did that relationship change?
well, food for me was it was my coping mechanism for whatever emotions I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis. That's what it became. Without even realizing it. But if I was sad, I ate. And if I was bored, I ate. If I was
Yeah,
angry, I ate. It was an emotional attachment, is what it became, and it took over. That was the way I coped with everything in my life. Now, I'm sure that the pattern of what I ate was definitely influenced by how I was raised and what we were fed
yeah,
growing up.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of that was because that's what my mother knew when she was growing up, and that's what she knew how to cook, and she was good at it. But ultimately, it falls on me. The responsibility was me, and I allowed
Yes.
that to become my soothing place, even if it was just momentary.
Mm.
It was, and that was the problem because it was only momentary. It was only a short-lived pleasure, so it just continued throughout a day, multiple times.
Sorry, just to interrupt again. So we've had, again, and I mentioned this at the beginning, we've had a bunch of members of the forum come on and talk about their drug addictions, specifically alcohol, which is of course a drug, and arguably whether we care to admit it or not. And again, I'm addressing this to those members of the audience listening that might be overweight or obese or fat or whatever, in terms of the reward behavior and addictions to food. So what seems to be common, and you've touched on this already, is the kind of wake up call, literally being told that you might die. We had Harley guy on who literally fucking died and had to be resuscitated, and it wasn't enough to stop him using drugs. It took something else. You had that wake up call from the doctor. I love the fact that your wife was in a similar situation to yourself, being morbidly obese, as you say in your log, and having her come on your journey. I also like, and I'll bring this in now as well, that your transformation was so impactful on other people, and I'll ask you about that as well, that buddies of yours were blown the fuck away by what you was able to do, and you literally, to help me with the pre-show research, sent me a document they put together, 4-page PDF document, Steve, via my Proton email account, that Big D had put together by buddies, and they wanted to support him by saying how inspiring he'd be. So the spousal support is huge. The choosing to make the transformation. Talk a little bit about that, because for people that are struggling with the idea of getting into shape, whether that's adding muscle or getting stronger, or as you did, combination of all three, but especially losing over 200 pounds, talk about that, the power of your decision and the support that you've had with your decision that's enabled you to get where you are today.
Well, I will tell you right now, I don't believe that I would have been successful had it not been for my wife deciding to go on this journey with me. We were honestly each other's worst enemy when we were in that addictive, habitual behavior. But I came home after the doctor's appointment and I told her, I said, listen, I'm not going to ask you to do this with me, but I just need you to take all the shit and take it to work and eat it there. I can't do this with all this stuff here in the house all the time. And she got kind of quiet, and I think she was a little bit, like not real happy to hear that at first. And then a couple of days later, she said, you know what? I'm not too far behind you. She was 283 pounds at her heaviest. And I'm not too far behind you, so let's do this. And we had to make a decision. And here's a key thing I think for us.
Yeah.
We could no longer make our health an option. We could no longer make not going to the gym and being physically active, or getting our asses out to the streets and just walking. It could not be an option anymore. It had to become a required thing, just like getting up and go to work so we could pay our bills.
So what specifically, before we start getting into the steroid talk, let's talk about what specifically you guys did. You mentioned you guys would go for walking. You both committed to the gym. What were some of the other things that you guys did in terms of nutrition and food?
We basically threw all the crap out. Honestly, we threw away a lot of food that we knew we just didn't need around, because it's counterproductive. It's like taking somebody who's addicted to alcohol and keeping a cabinet full of liquor. You can't be successful with that around. So that's what we did. We got rid of all that crap. That was first. And then we started looking at our nutrition in a deeper way. I'm a researcher. I learned to research when I was getting my doctoral degree. And I love researching things I'm passionate about. But, at the time, I knew I needed to learn what I could about nutrition. And so we started paying attention to things like our macros and stuff like that, even before we got into weight training the way that we are now. And for me, bodybuilding, and actually she's into bodybuilding too. She's not quite as competitive as I am, but she's just been kicking ass, and she is an inspiration to me. She went from 283 to 141 pounds. Her transformation is just as inspirational and incredible, and it's one of the things that keeps me going every day. But that support and that partner along beside me. But that was the nutrition was key. In fact, I think I would say right now that a lot of folks think that PEDs are the ticket to getting huge and being successful, and they want to use that, I think, sometimes even as a shortcut. But I will tell you, I will tell you this. If your nutrition and your training aren't on point, you can take all the PEDs you want, and you're not going to get where you want to be.
Yeah. So what specifically?
They absolutely help, but I like the simple fact is, Steve, that essentially, and I've used this phrase in shows recently, you took ownership of the fucking problem, you decided to fix it, you had the support, and indeed, you're almost going to be letting her down because she's doing a transformation too if you fuck up. And then you understand completely that the simple factors of getting your fucking ass to the gym and doing your shit and eating the right food on a daily basis will then, as we segue to talk about Winstrol and PEDs, will help. They will absolutely help. You can't lose over 200 fucking pounds taking Winstrol. You can't fucking make a decision to change your life just by taking Winstrol. You absolutely need to make sure that you've got the fundamentals and the foundational shit sorted out. And look, we've said this before. Even if there was a great drug that magically added muscle to your body, guys, and again, it's for the listeners, how much fucking better is your transformation if you're putting in the fucking work, if your diet is on point, because it has to be that. And of course, it can be that without, but it will be better then with products like Winstrol from Euro-Pharma or whatever. So, look, yeah, absolutely. Steve, any questions before we start to talk about gym stuff and specifically using
Talk
Winstrol?
about the fasting that you do. I know you work out fasted. Talk about an example. People out there who were in your situation, give us an example of the way specifically you may have switched what you usually eat for dinner versus what you changed, you and your wife, and you started eating for dinner instead. Was it going out to dinner that killed you, buffets and all that stuff? Restaurant food, takeout food, pizza, and then you switch to prepping your own food. So touch it on the before and after, how that switch happened.
Well, before we ate out almost all the time. Breakfast, actually, we never really ate breakfast. It was always lunch and dinner. And I'll tell you that addictive behavior always was, okay, almost immediately after I'd finished lunch, I'd be thinking, okay, what are we going to have for dinner? And it was always going to be the most fatty, richest tasting, best flavorful thing. That was the main priority. But, you know, that all kind of metamorphosized as we got into that journey. So the way we ate before was a total train wreck, dumpster fire. I mean, we were poster children for why we were the way that we were. I will tell you, it was not uncommon for she and I both to go to the local convenience store in the morning and get a 44-ounce Pepsi. And then by lunch, I'd finished that. So after lunch, I would go get another one before I went back to work. And then after work, I'd finish that. So I'd go get another 44-ounce Pepsi afterwards. And then sometimes, just to add a little extra on the end, I would get another 44-ounce Pepsi later in the evening. That alone in just liquid sugar was destroying us. But then you add on probably 6 to 7, 8,000 calories a day of pure fatty foods. It was unbelievable. So then afterwards, we had to start learning to enjoy, to know that we could enjoy foods that were healthier, prioritize protein in our diet, because one of the things I figured out early on was that as I was losing weight, I was also losing muscle, and I didn't want to be, so many people who use the GLPs, they use it, they do lose weight, but they are not active. My wife has a coworker that's like that, and she's like, I don't
Yes.
understand. I weigh a tiny bit less than you, but you look so much better. I don't understand. And
Yeah.
my wife's like, well, yeah, because you don't do anything to preserve your muscle, let
Yeah.
alone building it. You're losing muscle. Your body's eating it. If it can't get the protein that it needs through your diet,
Yeah.
it's going to steal it from what you have. So we were learning all that stuff as we went, and then we started figuring out how to enjoy healthy foods in a
Mhm.
constructive, healthy way that would actually help us achieve our mission. So that kind of evolved. For me, it's been kind of a trial and error kind of thing, because as I've gotten into bodybuilding and kind of really tried, both of us trying to hone in our macros in a very specific way, depending on what phase we're in, whether you're trying to cut or bulk or cruise, whatever it is. You need to make adjustments for each of those kind of phases. And so I've learned a lot in terms of that. But, recently, I don't want to make it sound like we are completely 100% regimented, never can enjoy an indulgence, because that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just cannot become something that is a regular, everyday basis. If you're
I'm thinking of something, and it might tie in with the comment that Steve made about fasting. Arguably, previously, food was quote unquote in control of you, and you talking about the things that you've just talking about is arguably you mastering or being in charge of the food. Food has become less just something to fucking do and now a tool. Training has become less this kind of sort of weird concept over there in the distance, and there's something you do. And Big D's made a comment just then as well, I think referencing the GLPs again. And I've said, as we looked at all the studies, every single study recommended greater levels of activity. This is from type 2 diabetes conversations anyway, never mind type 1, and specifically changes to the diet. So it isn't just a case of take drug, lose weight. You have to take the drug and fix the stupid fucking food habits. And literally, as Big D said, just going out and getting your fucking steps as a starting point and seeing better transformations in those individuals versus those that still have a poor diet or still have piss poor activity levels. So I think for you, Big D, you this element of becoming the master of your diet and the master of your activity, and literally, arguably, having almost a reward from, for example, the idea that you would previously eat all the time and now you can fast becomes a reward in and of itself, because you go, well, I'm in charge now, so it's a reward for you. Talk a little bit more now, because we want to move along here.
Talk about how you got into
yeah,
the next step now after losing all this weight. And now you look, I mean, you would never believe. See, if you just saw your pictures of today, you would never believe you were ever 400 pounds. You guys can check that out on his log. He looks like just one of those lean guys, you know, that I used to like do triathlons with. Those lean muscular guys I used to do triathlons with. So you would never guess it. So talk about the PED aspect of the Euro-Pharma products that you started to use. How long ago did you first start using them? And talk about when you started introducing Winstrol and what kind of benefits you got.
Well, I have to give a huge amount of credit to Vision from the forum. I've gotten to know him, and he's just a really awesome guy. And he's been on the podcast before. He's got an inspirational story of his own that he pulled himself up from his bootstraps and was able to do some great things. And so he's the one that told me about the Evo family. And I have to give props to the Evo family, because I've been on many forums and none are as supportive and helpful and encouraging as the Evo family. So that's important to say. Now, as far as the EP products, through my relationship with Vision, that's where I started learning about that as a source for my PEDs. Basically, my TRT, it's all with my testosterone that I use on a daily basis is EP, smooth as silk. It's fantastic. My blood work's always perfect. And then I came off this last bulking cycle also on using the EP Primobolan again, smooth as silk, perfect, perfect in every way. Has been my experience with that, and any other product that I have used from EP has been rock solid. So, I just feel like there's an element there that I always tell people that there's no chance, no coincidence. Things happen for a reason, and so I feel really blessed that I was able to find the Evo family and to find the Euro-Pharma products, because I don't think that there are anything out there any better. But as I transition into TRT, that's what I'm utilizing for testosterone.
So how long ago did you start your TRT?
Well, I was diagnosed with low testosterone back in my early 30s.
Okay, so it's been a
And
long time. And
yeah,
then how long ago did you start, aside from your TRT, when did you first start using these other PEDs from Euro-Pharma? How long ago? Was it about 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
not quite 2 years ago.
Okay. And then so besides the Primo and their testosterone, what else have you used from them? You used the Winstrol.
Yeah, and I've used their Proviron, um, Cialis, Tadalafil, um, and then I haven't used it yet, but I have plans to use their Anadrol at some point potentially. You got to so at 56, I'm about longevity now, so I think there's a lot of products that are going to be used by folks that are much younger than me, and probably safer to be used by people who are much younger in their training, in terms of how it affects their blood work
But you
and how
want
it
to
affects.
use the anadrol just to get a little bit of a push.
Yeah,
That's a
I
more
mean,
aggressive
potentially, and
drug.
it would probably be short term, in another bulk cycle. I'm thinking, but I'm still thinking through a lot of that. I have a coach that I work with, and he guides me in a big way, right now, and so we always talk through those kinds of things. But he knows that my focus is longevity. I don't think that I'll ever step on the stage. So, how a competitor attacks their cycles is going to be different from somebody
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
more of a
Yeah,
lifestyle.
of course, no.
99% of the listeners are not
Yes,
competitors, and so we're all
ever.
so touch upon the Winstrol specifically. That seems to be your favorite of all, and this is why we wanted you to come out on this podcast. So touch upon your experiences with Winstrol. What's the minimum that you've run Winstrol? What's the maximum you've run Winstrol? And what kind of benefits did you notice on Winstrol?
Yes, for
Um,
you.
you know, the Winnie, as I call it,
Mm.
it's it's something that I was very careful with. So I was very low dose with it because I know it can be really harsh on your blood work, and so I tend to be more on the conservative side, with the use of PEDs anyway. But what I noticed is, and I utilized it through a cut phase. Um, it dries you out. But I will say this: at that particular point in time, I wasn't as lean as what I got down to. Probably at that first time I used it was at about 13 or 14% body fat, and I think it has better visual effects if you're the leaner that you are, basically. So, the when I actually got down to 197 pounds at my very lowest. But when I was
Mhm.
there, I was at about 9.8% body fat, I think. And, but I wasn't using the Winnie at that time. I think I would have visually looked much better. I did notice huge amounts of what I felt like strength, endurance,
Mhm.
which was something that was a really good thing. But I was planning on the last time I ran it, I was going to run it for 6 weeks at the end of the cut cycle. Um, I went about 4 weeks, and I felt like my body was telling me that it was time to stop. I was just starting to have you know, all of these PEDs affect people in different ways.
Yeah.
One person can run them and they can say, "Man, I felt like Superman," and then the other one can say, "Man, after a while, I felt like I had the flu," kind of.
Mhm. So
And that
what
was kind
dosage were you on during that 4 weeks? Was it 25 or 50 or
it was 25,
okay? But you
but
saw some really big changes in that 4 weeks where it
oh,
caught you.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. The biggest change for me, though, I think, like I said, if I had been sub 10%, I think I would have visually seen better effects from it, but just the way that it dries you out, and you don't have water retention with it. But I I felt like for me the biggest improvement was that feeling of strength, power, uh,
Mm.
when I was on it.
There's definitely an argument to be made with most PEDs, as you've proven, by being leaner rather than fatter, and especially, and it depends on, of course, what the person's training for, getting better results, more noticeable results, easier to see what's going on results. So that makes a lot of sense to me. You didn't have any of the dry joint issues, etc., that some people experience, or was it simply a case of, this is my first go around, let's see how it affects my body? Because obviously what we've seen with some individuals is that when they get very lean, and especially pre-competition stage, etc., that's when people seem to, sub 8%, start to have the dry joint issue that Steve's mentioned on multiple shows. So that wasn't an issue for you, was it?
Not really. If I went back and reflected upon it, because I'll be honest with you, I think as we age, our bodies, um, they don't recover as well. I notice,
No, no,
I have
exactly.
things like I have elbow tendonitis that I deal with off and on all the time. So sometimes it's hard for me to be objective and go, oh, this is because of the PED,
Yes,
or I'm
yes,
like,
yes.
oh, is this just my body saying, hey, you know,
I've argued, Big D, that we try to be generalized when we give advice on these shows. But if someone was 400 plus pounds like you was, and someone else was 100 pounds, and one of you was 30 and one of you was 56, then we're not going to be giving the exact same information or having the exact same experience or the exact same results. That just can't be done. So the only thing that we can do as best we possibly can, and I think you're doing this, is look at ourselves specifically and be as analytical as possible. Is the tendonitis because I'm pushing it in the gym? Is the tendonitis because I used to be really heavy? Is the tendonitis because my elbows are drying out because I'm on Winstrol? Or even if I'd have been 15% body fat, would I have noticed? But when I'm under 10% body fat, I notice it, and so on. So these are the kind of questions you would work with your coach on. Obviously, you'd include these kind of information on your training log, and it might be for someone like me, Steve, or Lev, or whoever. They come in and go, "Wasn't that a problem the last time you won Winstrol? Wasn't that a problem the last time you was under 10%?" So these are the kind of questions, and again, this is for the listener. You need to ask yourselves and be aware of, and so on and so forth. We're asking it now just to see what Big D's experience was, but we're obviously aware that people, when they use Winstrol, that can be a problem, and even dose connected, Big D. If it was a low dose, it might be less of an issue. If it's a high dose, it might be more of an issue. So all these things come into play. It's not just, oh, Big D takes this amount and this is a problem, because today that might be true, tomorrow it might not. It's you have to think like this kind of stuff all the time. Again, this is the reason why we work with coaches. I'm just looking here, Steve, and you mentioned the fasting thing earlier on. Big D training at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning. Big D, I can't. The earliest I've trained is 7:20. I can't. How the fuck do you train at 3 o'clock in the morning, mate?
well, initially, I'll tell you a funny story that got me. I was a night owl. I mean, I was routinely up till midnight and get up at 6:30 in the morning and go to work. And then when we got started, we'd go to the gym at like after work, which is about 4 p.m. our time. And I got so frustrated at the high school social hour because I couldn't get on the equipment that I wanted because they're sitting on their
Yes,
cell phones and
yes,
and wasting time. And I
yeah.
would I would go to the next exercise and pop back in and try to get to the machine I needed, and they'd still be there 30 minutes later. And I asked them one day, I said, hey guys, how many sets you got left? Oh man, we got like 4 sets left. And I'd be like, dude, you've been here like 30 fucking minutes. What the hell? I mean, and I did. I told him, I said, what the hell? I said, you need to move on. And I was going ballistic. I was
You're
pissed.
serious about your shit. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
fucking go. Let me
So
ask you a different question, and I think this
yeah.
is slightly more positive. You have gone down to, as you just said, under 10% body fat. I've talked earlier in the show, and I think I want to bring in the PED aspect again here, Steve, with the Winstrol and so on and so forth. Talk a little bit about the not just the impact that this getting into shape, losing over 200 pounds has made on your life and your wife being supportive of you, but talk a little bit about people seeing you with Winstrol, with steroids, etc., and being blown away by your transformation, because this is going to make you want to go to the gym. It's going to want to make you want to use Euro-Pharmacy products and so on and so forth. So talk a little bit about those two things
Yeah.
together, if
And
you
then
don't mind.
bridge that into different ways you'd recommend people use Winstrol and
Yeah.
use some
So
of these
yeah,
Euro-Pharma
yeah, if
products.
you can, yeah. A couple of minutes on each, please.
Yeah, go ahead and unmute, Big D. You're still muted.
real, real quick, Mobster, could you rephrase the two things you
Yeah.
want me to touch on?
Very quickly then talk about the people's literally being blown away by your transformation, and then tell us a little bit more about, for example, uh, the transformation you've had using Winstrol, and again, people just seeing you get leaner, get into more shape, and perhaps if you use Winstrol in the future, would you be running it at 25 milligrams, or would you change the dose? Just out of interest, again, for the listeners.
Well, in terms of Winnie, I would probably run it again because I think I learned something from the last time, and I think anytime we use a compound, we need to be reflective of what it's doing to us and the return on investment. In other words,
Yes, yes, yes.
but I would probably start out at 25 initially. I'd probably try to go 6 weeks, and then
Mhm.
I would probably titrate up to 50 and see how my body tolerates it. And if it didn't tolerate it well, I would maybe titrate back down.
Out of
Um,
interest, you've said, I'm assuming orals versus injectables. Is that right?
that's correct.
Now, just as a little bit, again, I want to ask, and again, this is more for the listeners, Steve. People, we've mentioned this on other shows, just because we're very close to the finish now. People that have seen you transform, and especially those that haven't seen you for a while, that remember you being a much bigger guy versus you now, Euro-Pharmacy's Winstrol included, ripped, lean, and muscular. Talk about the impact that's had on people when they've seen you and been blown away by you. Have you, for example, inspired other people to get to the fucking gym? Not just your wife, but other people.
When I started this, I being an inspiration or motivation to somebody else was never on my radar, and
No.
I still find it really awkward when people say that because it's just I still think I've got a long way to go. But the it is pretty amazing the number of people who've commented, especially at the gym, coming up and saying, "What are you doing? How did you do this?" And I find myself really wanting to give back. And I would, when I retire, I plan to be a lifestyle trainer myself.
Yeah.
I want to
Nice.
help people transform the way that I did. And I think that I'm relatable because they know I've been there before.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's been pretty incredible journey in terms of that and knowing that I have inspired others when they tell me that. It, like I said, it's crazy to me. But at the same time, I'm proud of what I've done, but I'm not done yet. And
Good.
so,
Just
you know,
just to finish
So
then
you're
with the
not on
Steve's ask. Yeah.
you're not done yet. So tell us some of your future
Yes.
Europharma
Yes.
cycles that you plan on doing. What are some steroids that you plan on looking to do? And maybe equipoise, maybe different types of testosterones. What are
well,
some orals also?
the former fatty in me. I've heard some. I have not done equipoise, but I've got a good friend that does, and he swears by it. But I've heard, man, you just want to eat a house, everything in the house when you're on it, for some people anyway. And so that always gives me pause because, like, the former fatty in me is like, okay, you don't need any help with getting back to where you were. You got to maintain and stay the course. But I am intrigued by it. I think that the way that it's one of the more of longer term PDs to see the results, but I've seen fantastic results from it. um, I wish, Masteron is definitely on my radar.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Prima,
You mentioned that at Joel earlier.
yeah, and then Prima Bolin, I've had unbelievable results, but I think a lot of that was just the fact that metabolically, after my last cut, I was ready. I was primed and ready
Yes.
for a rebound.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so there's a lot to do with that. Plus, I train my ass off. I leave nothing in there. I focus on uh, rhythm and tempo, slow eccentrics, anything that will give me better hypertrophy and build muscle.
Yeah.
I
So
so
before we let you go, what is a cycle that you're currently on right now? What are you taking and what dosages are you using? Is it just go ahead and
so
yeah.
so I came off my last cycle, which is about a week ago, on 500 milligrams of test and then 350 of Primo. Um, and probably if I would run it again, just like that, and it was pretty basic. But I would probably maybe, and I want to add, I was on no AIs, and my E2 was running in the low to mid 40s at that dose, which I was very, very happy about because I don't really like having to use AIs if I can keep from it. but I would probably bump that up. But I'm thinking next time I would love to, if the current environment changes, add some master onto that, the anadrol, strategically in the cycle, and kind of see what that does. I'm not one to add like multiple different compounds in.
You don't see yourself using Tren, I would assume, right?
No, I don't. I think that
Yeah,
that's a younger man's game. I
Yeah,
think for
yeah,
me now, that's something that I will probably never run just
yeah.
because I'm 56.
Yeah. I
yeah,
might not, I don't think I'm ever gonna run it again myself. Like it's something maybe someone runs once in there just to see, but it's just like, oh my gosh, it's something. It is really something. You would have loved it like 15 years ago. If you
yeah,
had
yeah,
gotten into
yeah.
this earlier, you would have loved it 15 years ago. But yeah, you're right. It's probably so you're gonna stick to the more mild option. So with the Winstrol, if you were to use Winstrol in the future, as we finish up, would you recommend guys go more 25 milligrams or would you recommend more 50 milligrams?
Well, I think it's important to emphasize safety
Yeah.
with any compound that you use. I responsible use. So again, I'm more conservative. I would say definitely start out at the lower end and then see how you handle it. See how your body reacts to it. It's going to be different for everybody, and then
Yes.
potentially look at titrating up because
Yeah.
you're going to see those effects from that compound more prominently for sure at an extra dose, double the dose. So I think a lot of people might have a bad experience if they start out at 50 and go, well, I'm never running that again, when they could have run it, but they should have started out lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we
Yeah, it makes sense, Steve, because he mentioned research and he mentioned titrating
yeah.
earlier on.
Yeah, I've always
Guys,
liked 25 milligrams.
listening to these shows, to be informed and to run it safely, and starting with what works, if it works, and then if you feel the need to do more, then do more. Don't
Yeah.
start with
I've
more than you
al-
need straight away. Yeah,
I've always had good results at 25 milligrams on Winstrol. 50 milligrams was just like the side effects really start to hammer you. So yeah, I agree with that. 25 milligrams to start, and then
yep.
you could always increase it, try it, and then you can drop it back down. But before we let you go, Big D, there's people out there listening to this. We've talked to so many guys who have said, "Wow, your podcast has changed me. Your podcast has changed my life." So they're listening to this and they're like, "Man, I want to lose
Yes,
that 20 pounds or
yes,
50 pounds or 100 pounds or
yes.
200 pounds, whatever."
Mm.
You mentioned a great tip earlier, and this is something that I did as well when I was in my early 20s and I got out of shape myself, is that I went and I threw out all my junk. I took my junk food, I put it in a cover box, and I took it down and donated the food. So that's a great tip. What are some other tips you can give people out there to who are where you were before to get the wheels turning in the right direction?
I think it's important, first of all, to start out with baby steps. I think people get started and they go all in and they just go after like the
Too much.
ultimate
Too
thing.
much.
They overdo it. They end up hurting or sore or whatever else. They end up with this negative thing, and then their natural reaction is to go, "Well, holy shit, man! Like I used to do. I'm happy with where I'm at," which is BS. But start out with baby steps. Let your body adjust. Well, you are that obese. Trust me when I tell you, it's not ready for that. I went to so many gyms where they had those training sessions, and they went in and brutalized me the very first one. And I was so sore for a week after I
Yeah.
quit. And I don't
Yeah.
want people to quit. My my methodology would be start out with baby steps. Let yourself see some victories up front. It's
Yes.
motivating. It helps you stay the course. It's about longevity. It's about consistency. It's about discipline. And discipline is hard sometimes, but we're all capable of hard things. And that's my story. I found out that I'm much stronger mentally than I ever
Yeah.
thought I was. But I had to come up with a plan and attack it in a way where I could have short victories, little victories, get motivated, and continue to stay the course. So do it in small steps, master that, and then progress a little bit at a time. Because let's face it, this is at the end of the day, we want to do something that's sustainable, that it will give you longevity in what you're trying to accomplish. And that would be my message initially is, you know, do things and create habits and routines. Stick to your routines because consistency is key.
Listeners, I want you to come onto the forum and I want you to look at his log, listen to the words he's just given you, come onto the forum, create your own log, and just see that someone managed to take control of something that might have felt like it was out of control. He says he's not an inspiration because arguably, and I agree with you somewhat this way, Big D, we start with ourselves. We start with the support of those closest to us. And then perhaps along that journey, we start to realize that perhaps maybe people can learn by our example, whether that's choosing the right source, the right product, whether that's getting a great coach, whether that's having an amazing spouse, or whether that's literally waking up one fucking day and saying, fuck this bullshit. It's for me to take control of my life. And if I inspire people along that journey, so fucking be it. But I need to do this for my health. I want to be alive for my grandchild. I want to be alive for my wife. And that starts the journey. And as you say, baby steps. I know people that have literally transformed life just by going out for a walk every day when they wasn't doing that,
Yeah.
or
I think
stop
it helps
drinking or
too
cut back. Yeah.
to have a support system. This is why it's really good to come on
Yes.
the forum, as Big D said. So, Big D,
Yes.
finalize that before we let you go about having a support system. You had your wife, you had your friends supporting you, you have the
Yes.
forum supporting you. How
Vision.
important is that as
Vision.
well? I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah. Yeah.
important. You can't do it. It's hard to do it on your own. It's possible, but it's hard to do it. And I did it on my own in my early 20s because my family sure as hell ain't supporting a goddamn thing I do in my life. But like in your case, you had a lot of support system. Talk about that.
Well, and I want to say something that I think is key. I heard early on in my bodybuilding journey that the bodybuilding lifestyle can be lonely or it can feel lonely. And it became very real what that meant. Very few people, like you said, your family, they cannot relate to what you're doing.
No.
And so
I
it
gotta deal with
feels,
it every holiday, the bullshit. Oh, you're not eating this cake. You're not eating this
yeah.
pie. Are you on a diet? Ha, ha, ha. That's all
Oh,
they
you're
do. And they're
radical.
all
Yeah.
pregnant. All the men
Yeah.
are pregnant in my family. You know how they say men can get pregnant? I say, look
Yeah.
at my uncles. They're all fucking pregnant. Their guts are out like fucking a foot from their fucking stomach. So yes, man can get pregnant. Just look at my uncles. But
But
finish your thought.
the lonely place is the fact that you know that so many of the people that are important to you in your life cannot relate, and you get called a radical person or crazy. Why in the hell do you get up at 3? Because that's what's going to make me successful, and I'm willing to
Yes.
do whatever it takes. That's why I get up at 3.
Yes.
I actually get up at 2:30 because I get to the gym by 3. But
Yeah.
and my wife is right there with me, and people
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
well, Vision was like, I don't care what anybody says. That says everything right there. And I was like, well,
Yes.
it just is what it is. But I want to go back and touch back on this. When you have a community like Evo that is so
Yeah.
supportive, wants to be helpful, I get excellent feedback. I mean, I've been on other forums where I posted my log and they don't say shit. I think some of it is because they see a middle-aged, what they, middle-aged guy pretending to be a bodybuilder and whatever. I don't care. I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it for me and my family and the people that depend on me. That's why I'm doing it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, but the Evo family is different. I'm telling you, it's 1,000% different. When I realized the support I was getting, I didn't feel so alone. I didn't feel so alone in that journey because I knew there were other people besides my wife and the people in the gym and they're a support system for me too because they are constantly encouraging me. But outside of that, it can be a lonely place, and
Yeah.
you get pushback from people that you wouldn't think you would get pushback. And I don't know if it's because they're jealous or what. It doesn't matter. But if you
Oh
get
yeah.
active in the
They are.
community,
Some
the Evo
sometimes
I
it's
have
family.
a
just
client.
teenagers.
I have a
Yeah, teenagers
client
being
that I
kids and macho bullshit, and we're not about that. We talk about on this show, Steve, how we want every single person that listens to this show to succeed. I don't care if you're a teenager who was a 16
yeah.
inch arm or you're a 56-year-old, 400 plus pound male that was to lose half your fucking body weight. We want you to listen to this show and go away and be inspired and succeed. And that's what comes across on the forum with the guys. And again, Big D is in and of himself, even if just all he does is post on his log we will direct someone who's about to start that journey. Go and look at Big D's log. See where he was, see where he is right now, and tell me you can't do what Big D's doing. It doesn't have to be fucking 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. It can be 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. It can be going after the teenagers are going at 10 o'clock at night. I don't give a fuck. But he does this shit every single fucking day, whether that's dieting or steps or gym or whatever. And look where he is. And all you got to do is mirror what he's done, and you can make a transformation. And that again, I'm older, perhaps Big D being older, Steve's 40-ish. We're not teenagers. We don't think like teenagers. We want other people to succeed. We want them to be better. They're doing what we do, so why the fuck wouldn't we want them to be successful?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's maybe the vibe we have.
I would say reach out to me. You can direct message me. I would be more than happy to pass along what I know and help out any way I could.
So hit him up, guys.
Big
Big D 9795. Check out his log. It's very inspirational. He's got before and after pictures. So Big D, thanks for coming on this morning, man.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you on the forums.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ta-da.
So Mobster and I, listen, let's get into Euro-Pharma a little bit. And the nice thing about Euro-Pharma, look, they cater to everybody. Whether you're a professional bodybuilder, whether you're a normal Joe like Big D, whether you're anywhere in between, whether you're a weekend warrior, whatever you happen to be, they cater to your needs. They have everything from A to Z on their list that you can be purchasing, including Winstrol. And they also have different versions of Winstrol. So Mobster, touch upon the different types of Winstrol they have. They have the oral version, they have the injectable, they have the kind you can drink. Touch a little bit about that before we let the guys.
I'm looking right now, Steve, at the Euro-Pharmacy's options, 10 milligram international and domestic, of course. They've blisters as well as sachets, Steve. They've got a couple of products called the Summer Cutting Cycle, which is 50 milligrams, and it is a combination of Anavar or Winstrol together. So there you go, in and of itself. They do a almost sold out. I'm looking at their 25 milligram oral option, and I'm also scrolling down the page here. Very few left, I believe, of the 15 ml vials, which are 50 milligram a ml, and there is a standard 10 ml. They've got an offer on that, but you need to grab it real quick as we do this show in late November of the 50 milligram a ml, 10 ml vial. So they have you covered, Steve, on both oral and injectable options, and both blister pack and sachets and different size vials, etc. Look, it's an absolute fucking standard in bodybuilding to use Winstrol, and especially if you're a leaner person or someone who's looking to get lean and seeing results. And you have the option, as per Euro-Pharmacies here, of using an oral or an injectable in preference to whatever else you're doing as part of your stack. Listen to what Big D said about making sure that you source a solid product. There are Euro-Pharmacies. Literally see the results, and you can see that by going onto his log and checking out the results. And you've got to have a company like Euro-Pharmacies behind you with a solid source and a solid product. Anybody that's listening to this show as we finish, Steve, knows that I am a huge Euro-Pharmacies fan. So I absolutely echo everything Big D said and Steve said about using a solid source and solid products to get great results. I like the fact that we've discussed the simple fact that he might respond differently as he ages. I like the fact, Steve, that he talked about titrating from 25 milligrams upwards and being able to see that. And even, for example, being aware if it's a training or the diet or his condition versus use of Winstrol, that whether he was having elbow tendonitis and so on and so forth. Yeah. So listen, guys. Yeah.
And the nice thing too about Euro-Pharma, they have guys on the forum, and Big D mentioned one of the reps on the forum. They have several different reps, at least 2 or 3 reps on the forum who are there to answer your questions. Anytime you have an issue with your order, you have a question about the website, whatever. And so you can come on the Evolutionary forum and you can find out where to get the best Euro-Pharma out there. And they are an A+ brand. They've been tested. They've been vetted.
Yes.
They're constantly getting tested and vetted randomly, anonymously by guys on the forum to make
in-house and third party.
You got guys on the forum who literally do it out of their own pockets, who test these products to make sure they're legit. So you don't have to worry that you're taking 50 milligrams of Winstrol. Oh my God, it's underdose. Oh my God, it's overdose. Oh my God, it's fake. Oh my God, it's something else. You don't have to worry about that. You know, when you buy from Euro-Pharma, you're getting what you want. So come on the forum. Check out Big D, check out his log, check out Euro-Pharma, and try and change your life, No matter where you're at. You could be 11% body fat right now. Oh, I want to get to 7%. Okay, let's do it. You could be 25% body fat wanting to get to 15%. Let's do it. You could be 40% body fat wanting to get down to 20% body fat. Okay, let's do it. No matter what you're looking for, come on the forum. We'll get you in the right direction.
Absolutely, Steve. Big D, whether he likes it or not, it's a fucking inspiration. I'm going to say it whether he likes it. So listen, guys, I absolutely think his transformation has been outstanding. Let us know what you think. Like Steve said, come onto the forum. You want to change your life. You want to get into shape. You want to get stronger. You want to get leaner. We're there for you. The community will support you. And again, thank you to Big D for coming on today, because I think this is going to be one of those outstanding episodes, even if it only goes to the guys that are a little bit overweight and they're the ones that focus on today's show. I think it will have some impact, Steve. Please note, we are not doctors and your opinions are ours. It is our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.